The agenda before you. And I think we have had someone sign up on the public comment section, so let's move that up if that's okay before we go into executive session.
We also had a sick leave bank update and Mr.
Okay.
Strickland's request, so I had that and shoot this information.
All right, with those amendments, can we get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Have a motion, Mr. Strickland, is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, call for the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next, we have the minutes of the January 13th meeting. Behind tab 3, if you would review those. And when you're ready, Chair would entertain a motion.
I think you need to make on the last statement there, we can't come out of executive session and just go straight to adjournment in the same minute. Maybe that would be 8:28 instead of 8:27. Can you do that?
Sure.
It's quick, I know.
We can start carrying out.
8:27.5 here.
We're not on the shot clock. I'll make a motion, we accept the minute
With that change.
with that change.
Okay, I have a motion, Mr. Chason.
Second.
And I have a second, Mr. Locklear. Any further discussion? Not to call for the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right. Next, we have superintendent information. Mr. Humphrey.
Okay, we have the, there's whole board training set up this week at Linux. We've had a little bit of a kink thrown into our schedule because the playoffs were not set at the time. We didn't know who was playing when and where. It turns out that our girls won today, and I've already handed that around for board members. So they will play, the girls will play tomorrow at Clinch at 7 o'clock. And then Thursday, right, where in the middle of when we were supposed to be at Lennox, we have our boys who are number 2 seed in the region playing against whoever wins between Wilcox and the Clinch-Irwin game that's probably over by now. I'm not sure who's won that. But definitely we'll be playing at 5:30. So I know a couple of board members have expressed an interest in going to that, supporting the team. I've talked to Mr. Chambers. We can reschedule the board training, the whole board training, and just have it here, if that would be your pleasure. Because it won't be whole board training regardless, unless we're all together.
Is that okay with?
Yes, sir.
Change it so we have it here.
Yeah, we'll change it, have it here, and we'll find a date that we can all attend.
Now I'll get back with you on that date then. I talked with Harold. Gay Seafood was going to take care of the dinner for us, so I don't know if we'll be able to get there. The 6-hour training is still on, and I know we've got 2 members. I ran you earlier, that's the date that you need to mark down. The other 3 board members, they got that in Atlanta, that you can go to that one, and if you can't attend that, we can get it either online or something like that. But that's when they'll have Linux again, like they've done in the past. We have some schedules with track and baseball schedules in there for you. And Mrs. Strickland asked for a sick leave bank update. So started, so if y'all have one, the committee members are in place. This comes straight from the policy. I've attached the policy and also the regulations that we have at this point that have been approved. But here are the sick leave bank committee members. Some are appointed by me, those first three. Some were elected, one from each school, as you see those members there. And then there are a couple of ex officio non-voting members. We did the policy when we did the regulation. What we said in the regulation was that, and that would be the third page over, under membership, number 1, that last sentence, after the sick leave bank is established, open enrollment period shall be held between August 15th and September the 15th. We set it up to start enrollment at the beginning of the next school year. That was their recommendation, just because it kind of coincides with a lot of things from teachers coming back on board and signing up. Also, talking with Charlie, to be able to track people that with their sick leave, and as they donate that, there's an update in the software that the state DOE will give us through our Genesis program. We're in line to get it. We don't have it yet. Until we get it, we're not going to be able to. We have to create something else to track it. Not sure exactly when that is. I think we're just in line on it.
Yeah, I talked to the technology director with GDOE last week, and he said that we're in the queue. It should be in the next few weeks to a month. They'll actually come down and train everyone here on the ins and outs of the new changes to the program, so that our leave and everything will be integrated into the same software.
All right, and so that's kind of an update on the sick leave.
Is that the change just for sick banks or just leave in
No,
general?
it's leave in general. Historically, PC Genesis, which is accounting software we use, was not able to track leave. We had a third-party program that we used, and several of the smaller systems like our size used, and everybody kept asking for that change to be made until they did it. Now they've done it, and we're on board to get online with it. So it's going to track all of our leave.
Is this gonna be enough time from 1 month, August 15th to September 15th, to be able to get online and get ready?
Yes, it'll be a pretty simple process once we get the committee trained, and we're going to get together next month. There's some other forms that we need to develop. Basically, it's going to come down to how many will want to participate, and they'll sign up, and those days then will be put into that system. Everything else is guided and driven by the policy itself.
So what if someone needs that time before September 15th?
It won't be available. Won't be available.
Can you change up an enrollment period?
We could if we amended the regulation that we just passed.
That this committee passed in front?
When we went through our policy manual, that's when we did the sick bank policy and regulations all at the same time. And I think I recall mentioned at that time that we would have open enrollment at the beginning of the next school year. That was when they recommended having it. It's just easy transition. It's the beginning of a new year.
And this allows members to give up to 1 day?
1 day.
What if they wanted to give more?
The committee, if they need more, can go back and ask for a second day. But other than that, they would have to operate under that. The only exception in the policy is that if there are two spouses that work in the same system, one spouse can give up to 10 days for the other, and that's pretty much standard in the sick leave bank policies across the state.
But if I was a member of this and I wanted to give up one day, I could designate who it went to.
No,
goes
it
to
just
the
has to go, and then the committee will take whatever request that a person might have to use the sick bank, and then they can get up to 20 days at a time, up to 40 in a school year, up to 60 maximum while they're working here.
But if my spouse worked here, I could designate 10.
You could designate 10 of your days for your spouse.
We don't have to worry about that.
If they wanted to give up 10 days, they couldn't give 10 days.
No.
How many employees we got total?
250.
And you can participate, classified, non-classified.
That is classified and certified 250. That's
And
it.
both can participate.
Yes, everybody participated. Remember, we even allowed, in that policy, we expanded the number of days that they could have for bus drivers to clerical staff, because it was limited before, and we widened and broadened that. And see, those would accumulate. That first round, if you had even 150 participate, you've got 150 days there. Then the next year, and if you had to come back and have a second round, that would be 300 days. Then the next year, whatever's in there stays in there, continues to bank. So, yeah.
How does the committee prevent abuse?
They have to decide as a committee, but they have a medical documentation. If there was any suspicion, I guess, that there was abuse, then they can ask for another and designate another medical provider to give them the information that was indeed needed.
So according to 5, if the sick leave bank committee determines there needs to be additional days, they can take one additional day, and they just notify the employees they're gonna take an additional day.
Right, but that's all they can take. So, and all those employees will know that when they sign up, that they can give one, and they might need to give up the second one if there was that much of a need during that school year. And that's gonna depend on how many people sign up, and if someone needs it during that next fiscal year. A lot of things that will still be determined.
Is that an enrollment every year? I mean, if you enroll.
Yes, they can choose to disenroll the next year if they don't want to participate. They can't never get those days back. Once they give 1 or 2 days, that stays in the bank. But if the next year they choose to continue, we'll just roll it over and continue. If not, then they can be taken out. But if they're not a member, then they can't take or use it. So, pretty big incentive to participate.
Okay. Any more questions on this? If not, we have a couple of action items we'll move to. I believe that's tab 5, the youth art auction, March the 27th. I don't know if y'all remember, we did this a few years ago, I think.
So Ms. Raines was the art teacher, we did it, and Ms. Pate and Ms. Lyons are asking to kind of reinstate it as an incentive for students in the art program.
And the money goes where?
Different percentages, as you see spelled out there, to the grade levels, for incentives, artwork, so much to the student, depending on how much one art piece might sell for. If it's a student piece, then some of that would go to the student. That percentage will be determined by Ms. Lyons and Ms. Pate and Ms. Powell and Ms. Terrell.
We did this at a school I was at, but the high school, there was top 5 of their artwork. and the board always bought one of those artwork and displayed and actually rented for a year from the student and paid them $150 to rent it for a year. Then the next year they do something different with someone else next year. I was just wondering, could we incorporate that in this also? Where we would display the work. You're laughing.
Let me check with my financial director on whether or not that's allowable expense.
Let me check with my financial. I think we can rent, things for facilities, for our facilities, and, we should be able to do that if you know, want to.
I think it's a good idea.
I agree, it's a good idea.
If we had one top high school student who had a nice artwork and they were willing to rent it to us for a reasonable price, let's just say, for a year, and display it, and that might give an incentive for somebody next year really want to try a little harder and harder and get something out of it. So what do I need to do, make that in the form of a motion or suggestion
No,
or what?
I think administration has, that would be within their financial means to do.
We'll get with our art advisor and
Get it appraised?
get it appraised, get it bid in on it.
Thank you. Good idea.
Yeah.
Mr. Chase. Having said that, now will you approve the,
Make a motion to approve the auction.
all right, have a motion. Is there a second? Second, Mr. Sermons. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye? Opposed? All right, next.
Well, if you're having some friends over, you'd like some new china, or some old china, slightly used. We have some from years gone by when the school used to, I guess, put on certain events and they had their own china. It's now been stored for years, and Ms. Clay would like for you to surplus it so that we can advertise it to the public and get it sold and off our shelves. And you see there what it consists of. Someone has expressed interest, but of course we would let the public know and they could take a look at it and have sealed bids. We'll put that in the paper if you approve surplus of this.
Okay.
So moved.
Have a motion, Mr. Strickland. Do I have a second? Second, Mr. Locklear. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call for the question. All those in favor, aye? Aye. And opposed? Thank you. Next, we have personnel and contracted services. You need to speak to any of those?
No, the first we have is the district-wide staff, and you'll see that on one page. On that memo, you see all the district-wide staff. I'm asking your approval for. And then we have a bus driver. Also behind that first tab, we had a directory of services, just for your information as to who's in charge of what. We have a new bus driver that's trained. I hope you approve him because we're already using him. It's a critical need that he was.
He's in automobile today, as a matter of fact, with middle school.
One of the situations where we had him trained and he was good to go. We just need to get your approval on it because it was a dire need at one point. We did have one day last month that we had all drivers here.
It was one morning.
One morning.
Yeah, it was actually.
This is late by the afternoon, okay. I thought we meant that.
Maybe you ought to have a better incentive program for your bus drivers to be.
And then we've got a couple retirements and maternity leave, so I don't know how, if you want to take them all at once, you can. Or
Maybe it was an afternoon, it was. A lot of sickness. a lot of
What's the
sickness this year.
board's pleasure? We take all those at once?
Are there any contracts that exceed a year?
no. There's one there that's noted that it's contract in place for FY 15 already. But that's not going to extend any, no one's gonna have the contract extended.
I make a motion to take them all at once.
All right. Have a motion to approve them as written.
Second motion.
And there's a second, Mr. Lockley. Any further discussion? Not call for the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much. Charlie? We got any money?
We got some money. The Wanda was giving me the dirty look again. I got the financials today. One of these days I'm gonna have them well in advance on it,
Does the date slip up on you?
yeah. Well, we have several things going on, but we were able to get them today, and nothing really jumped out at me when I prepared these financial statements, other than what's not here. And what's not here is the fact that last week we got a significant check for our local taxes, and that was deposited, so that'll be on February's financial statements.
That was about 1.4 million.
1.4 million, and I also talked to Rebecca, and she said that she was preparing another one, and I told her where we needed to be as far as what we had budgeted and what we had received, and she said we should be basically, at our budget number, but I'd like to get that check in the bank first before I promise that. Another significant thing, and I was telling everybody, did the Lukens, the one time the Lukens didn't make it, and I'll let them know personally or next time we have a board meeting. This month we received our impact aid money. Every year we apply for that. It's a grant from the federal government to offset some of the expense of military. We have a very strong military family base here in Lanier County that we're proud of, and we received that money in this month, and I wanted to tell her and thank her for her hard work and contribution on everything that she helps us with that, and I'll make sure to make her aware of that. And that was everything pretty much on the financial side.
Representative Shaw said that we're supposed to be getting money for some timberland stuff. Has that come through?
We will see that at midterm. I believe he's talking about that FLIPA, which is forest land protection.
Yeah.
People put forest land in protection. Congress, you don't get local taxes on that because it's in protection, so they give, an offset. And that's one of those political footballs that's been kicked around year after year, and so hopefully we will get that. We got it last year, and that'll be a significant increase too.
How about the sparsity grant?
But as far as Steve, we're supposed to get that too. It looks like it's a reduced number than what we received last year, maybe by about 20 grand.
Right.
We got an email today that we got that money's coming to Lanier County, and maybe it was $150,000.
Yeah.
It was an email today from Jason on that.
On that FLIPA grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what?
That showed how much Mounds was getting, Lanier was getting,
And
and
Atkinson.
is it Axon?
We will hopefully know soon what our midterm, and we'll be working on FY 15 budgets, and really once we get the local taxes in for this year, midterm adjustment in for this year, we'll know by then, maybe, I just don't know when that's going to be, but we'll know how we're going to be revenue wise for FY 14. And in this educational finance, it's basically driven by revenue. Of course, if you don't have the money, coming in, but as soon as we get that, we'll be able to actually know where we're going to be on FY 14, if we're going to get extra, and then our preliminary allotment for 15. So that'll be coming in. At this point, we're getting information as far as they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that, they're gonna do this. We'll know and, as soon as they get through and let it all settle out, and then we'll know.
That, do you call it flip-em? Is
Yeah,
that
call it
budgeted
flip-em.
money, or?
No, it's not budgeted money. It's, I'll get with Rebecca. I don't think that's in our, tax digest. I'll have to check with her to be sure. I think at one point they put it in there, but it depends on the legislature's approval, so I'll have to get with her and see if that's in that 2.6 that we budget on our tax digest, or if they leave that out, because it's a line item that has to be funded, basically.
Okay.
Now, the sparsity is something that is on the allotment sheet.
Right, yeah, the sparsity is on the QBE allocation sheet, so that's coming.
So that's budgeted?
That's
We just
budgeted.
don't know if we're gonna receive what we budgeted.
Well, that they're talking about is for
For next
sparsity
year.
for next year,
Okay.
right, for FY 15.
And it may be-
They want it, yeah, that's another line item in the funding for schools that they like to, politicize, I guess you would say, but we're getting it for this year. It's all depending on what they approve up there as to whether it's gonna be funded for next year, FY 15.
Now, it's true that the governor's trying to give teachers pay raises, but it may not be pay raises at the end. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. You'll hear the number 500 million, but really about 200 million of that is for the midterm adjustment for student growth. It's already in the formula that was supposed to be paid out to take care of growth and enrollment across the state. So he's about a little over 300 million that he wants to allocate to school systems, and the way he's allocating it right now is with flexibility for the local boards of education to decide how that money's going to be used. We don't have an amount yet because that budget hasn't been finalized. We've been told that it would be a reduction in our austerity amount by maybe 30%. Our austerity amount is $1.2 million, so if we got 30% of that, it'd be $360,000 of new revenue. But having said that, most school systems either have furlough days in place or in deficit finance. We're in deficit finance. This year's budget is $500 million in deficit finance. So,
500,000.
excuse me, what is it, 500 million? We're not quite there. That might be Atlanta City, but at 500,000, that 360 doesn't even offset that. So it really sounds great, and it is great news that we have new revenue coming in, but it does not necessarily translate into teacher pay raises per se. That's going to have to be a board decision down the road. When we look at it, I can tell you that Charlie and I will put together the numbers on what a pay increase of what magnitude 1%, 2%, 3% would cost. We would look at the deficit for next year, depending on all of those numbers, including any other equalization money that we may or may not get, and make that decision. But since none of those numbers are firm yet, we just can't make a decision right now. But it sounds great, and we're happy for that, and we appreciate the governor doing that. But no, it's not going to necessarily translate across the state into teacher pay raises.
All right.
I got another question if I can ask.
You
May
sure
not be on
can.
the budget, but, some systems that I've heard is the snow days are being forgiven. They don't have to make them up. What is our system?
Well, students don't have to make them up. That's just across the board. They get up to 4 days each year that they don't have to make up due to inclement weather, and those are the only 2 that we've had. Teachers, on the other hand, are paid under contract, and I told our principals at our district leadership meeting, the state Board of Education next month is going to address this, and whether or not they come up with some way that teachers do not have to make those days up, and will still pay us is up for grabs. Right now, tentatively, what we've told principals is that unless the state board makes a change, we'll ask our teachers to come in and do one extra day of post-planning, and then that they will just sign off that they have spent an additional 8 hours on top of that out working outside the classroom, which is very easy to do between now and the end of the school year. So they would only have to physically come for one day. If the state waives that, we'll certainly let them know and not require it to be here.
I got one other financial just homework lesson for you, Charlie. Tell me, maybe next board meeting, how much do we expend annually on extended day and extended year contracts? I know it's something you can't answer off the top of your head, but
Yeah.
I just like to know how much we put in to extended day and extended year on all the contracts that have that. And see what that costs us as a dollar figure annually. Thank you.
On that note, Mr. Coach, there, I think Atlanta's fixing to get hit with a couple of more days if anybody's seen the weather, so that may affect the state board's decision because.
The governor called it at lunch today.
Yeah, he was a little bit early on it this time. They had a big show of it this time because they missed it last time. But that may affect the decision if they get hit with 2 more days as to whether everybody has to make it up. And I'll get those numbers together for next board meeting.
Any more questions? Any further discussion? All right.
Thank you.
I think that's all we have on the agenda. We do have next public comment, and I think there's some folks have signed up for public comment. I would remind you, it is the board's policy on public comment that we do not respond or answer questions and so forth. It is strictly an opportunity for you to make a comment. Mr. Zirkle?
First thing's a question, do you have some more water?
Yes.
You responded.
Yes. But you haven't started commenting.
Good answer.
Excuse me, my voice is about shot. Mr. Patton, I really struggle with whether to come to this board meeting tonight, and even struggled even more with whether, excuse me, whether to speak at this board meeting tonight. I come in support of our athletic director and our head football coach, and I come with my experience with him. And granted, I don't go home with him every day, but I don't go home with any of you every day, and I don't know all there is to know about any of you. And I dare say most of us would be embarrassed if somebody did know all there is to know about any of us in this room. But what I know about him is that he's a hard worker, man of integrity. He's moving the program in the right direction and putting academics and character ahead of wins and losses. And I believe he's setting a good example for what a man has to do in this life. And in my experience, and I try to teach my boys, what a man has to do in this life is a little bit more than what just a male human being has to do in this life. To make a way, to be an example, and to be the head of a household. I have a lot of respect for Coach, and some things have happened recently, and I think he's taking ownership. But again, I don't know all there is to know about anybody. But I would ask that when the time comes, that when the board moves forward, that you do so judiciously, and you do so in a thoughtful and prayerful manner. You know, we and most people in here probably consider yourselves Christians, and most of you probably are. Most of us probably are, I should say. But you know, we got this thing in God's army where we tend to kill our wounded, or just walk on and leave them, and it's pretty messed up. And you know, I was reading something earlier in John where the Pharisees and some of the finest people in town were gathered to stone a woman And I often wonder what Jesus was writing in the sand down there. But then it came to me, it doesn't matter what he was writing. The reason he was writing with his finger in the sand is to show them just how important what they had to say was. The answer was, it wasn't. You know, needless to say, you all know the story. He went on to tell them, let he among you who is without sin cast the first stone. And they basically went their separate ways. And, you know, he told the woman, of course, go and sin no more. And, you know, I've heard some things, and even I've had some discussions with board members, and I would ask, respectfully, that we all refrain from putting anything out in the public. So moved.
Have a motion, Mr. Lutley, is there a second? Second, Mr. Chason, all those in favor, aye? Opposed? All right. Is there any further business?
Make a motion that we close.
Have a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chason, second, Mr. Strickland, all those in favor, aye?
Uh,
Thank you very much.